Okay. Next up, we have another vendor talk. This is from Cory, Spitz, and Jason Goodman. Let's see here. Jason Goodman leads Cray's storage and data management marketing efforts, which include working with OpenSFS's marketing working group. His background is in storage software, having worked for companies such as Polyserve, Isilon, and Aspera. He's been with Cray for nearly 2 years. Cory Spitz leads the storage data management file system team at Cray. He's worked for Cray for 13 years. He's been involved with Lustre since 2009. Active participant in OpenSFS, particularly CDWG, TWG, and contract project approval committees. So thanks for working on the pack. Cory, Chris Marone, Nathan Ruttman. So when you see those guys, pat them on the back because they've been working on the Intel contracts. That having been said, please allow me to introduce Cory Spitz, Jason Goodman from Cray. Thank you all.
Thank you. So can everyone hear this? Yes, they can. So we're going to do an interesting thing. We're going to actually jointly present this. I'll give you a bit of an intro, tell you a bit about Cray, what we're doing in the Lustre and storage world, and then Cory will go into what we're doing with OpenSFS, specifically in the technical working groups. And then we'll come back, I'll take the baton back, and I'll talk a bit about HSM and Cray's play in HSM and what we're doing there, and building on top of Robinhood. And I also just want to point out that we've got some other Cray folks here. We've got architects Steve Woods and Dave McMillan and Charlie Carroll. I think this is, you haven't been to this lug in a while, huh? Charlie is running our storage group and works with Cory.
Yeah, not to call out Charlie. Notably, he's our Cray's OpenSFS board member.
Yeah. So let's see here. So Cray basically has 3 business units. One, people know us for supercomputers. We've got an entire business unit dedicated to supercomputers and clusters. We also have a storage business unit that's really evolved over the years from just being an integration firm to actually selling storage products. And we've got a group in Pleasant, California called Yark Data that's focused on analytics, specifically graph analytics and Hadoop. So we're going to talk a bit about what we do on the storage side. And the thing that really is unique about Cray and what we bring to Lustre and to the overarching storage side of our business is that we really preach holistic system expertise, meaning that you don't just simply install a Lustre file system. You have to have expertise from the applications and codes and compute layer all the way down through the network, all the way down to the disks. And that's very different than many other storage companies who may be experts in their disk system, but they don't know that entire pathway from the applications down to the disks. And at the end of the day, what our customers really talk about are the results that they're getting. And these customers span from immense, large supercomputing sites like NCSA and ECMWF on down to little storage configurations like we have at the University of Chicago on the Beagle system, which is about 600 terabytes on DDN storage, direct attached Lustre to a supercomputer. So, just three things to focus on here is one scenario is similar to what happened at Los Alamos, where Los Alamos really wanted to turn to a single provider that had the security clearance that they needed to put together not just the supercomputing piece, but the storage piece as well. And we were able to help them actually reuse hardware they already had, get moving with Lustre, and doing it in a way that really met their criteria for performance, resiliency, and availability. And then there's NCSA, which we've talked about over the last couple of years quite a bit. And what we're really starting to see at NCSA now is the byproduct of all the hard work that's gone into it. So Michelle Butler talking about how scientists are simply doing, research in unprecedented time frames. And that, is really what Cray had helped her to do. And then there's PAWSI, which we haven't talked much at all about, which is exceptionally fascinating. It's this modern little building in Western Australia that is really the first real-time data processing facility for radio astronomy. About a quarter of their workflow is radio astronomy and other sciences. And they're pulling in about 250 terabytes a day. And the key thing that Cray is doing there with IVEC is being the end-to-end system integrator. Everything from how the data is acquired, coming off the telescopes across the desert into that facility, and all the way from data managing that through core Lustre storage on out to HSM. So, and then one marketing slide. Really, our sales guys are off selling really two products, right? One is Cray Synexion, which is our scale-out Lustre storage system, and the other one we're calling TAS, or Tiered Adaptive Storage, which is an HSM solution, a turnkey HSM solution that we partnered with Versity, who's developed if anyone is familiar with Sun SAM-QFS, a very similar stack, but purpose-built for Linux. So we've actually embedded that into a system that we roll out the door in racks. But what's not up on this slide are the other things that we do. We actually put together, small Lustre systems, what we call CLFS, or the Lustre file system by Cray, where you can actually reuse storage that you have or buy that storage from us. And the byproduct also is really system architectures, right? So that's a big part of what Cray provides. Cory? I don't have the clicker, so you're going to have to click on it.
That's okay. Hi. So I think most of you guys know me. I've been attending LUGS for a few years now. And I think you're familiar with Cray and with OpenSFS, but this is a transition slide from Jason. Thanks, Jason. Cray, has been an investor in Lustre for a long time. We've been a user of Lustre for a long time. And as you may know, Cray was a co-founder of OpenSFS, and we really, helped found OpenSFS to achieve a number of goals. And I'll echo things that you've heard other people say today. I think already we're finding the Lustre's maturing. The direction that OpenSFS will start to take Lustre, I think, in concert with the OPS, is changing because of the maturity. And I think we've been fairly successful. Sorry, Jason, this is, there's things popping up here, but I'm just going to keep moving along. So Cray is, using OpenSFS, taking from OpenSFS, and we're giving back to OpenSFS. We're taking I think our primary role with OpenSFS is taking our internal requirements and our end user requirements, what we think that they'll be, and finding a way to get that new technology inserted so that Lustre is successful in our deployments. And the biggest part of that, I think, is the testing effort that we bring to bear, and I'd like to spend a few moments talking about that later today. And on Thursday afternoon at the working group meetings. But just a little bit more background of what we're doing with Lustre first. So we're taking requirements, and we wanna build on our investment with Lustre and with OpenSFS. We want to maintain the excellence that we have deploying Lustre. So we want to take Lustre feature releases and test them at scale. And so I think it was Peter Bojanic earlier that said, wouldn't it be great if we could take a Lustre feature release and just drop it onto a system at scale and put it into production? That's what Cray's goal is. And so what are our strategy? What is our strategy and tactics in order to do that? Well, so Cray's working with. We're not developing a lot of core Lustre enhancements or features, but we are doing a lot of the test fix, making sure we're getting good test coverage, good code coverage, finding those bugs, reporting those issues, working on the things that we can, and doing it at the head of the line of development. So we're not, so we're benefiting the whole community by doing that. We're not. As some of you may know, Cray has offered Lustre for a long time. One of the things that we had a number of years ago, back with Lustre 1.6, is Cray developed hundreds of patches on top of 1.6. It became very hard to manage the things that we were fixing for ourselves, we didn't have the opportunity to benefit the community as a whole. Now I think we've moved to a model where we're working on the master line of development, and I think we're able to pay it back a little bit that way. So in addition to testing master, we're also testing the release branches. We have, we're putting Lustre source in the feature releases and the maintenance releases, not all of them, but we attempt to put a lot of these things out to achieve some of our other tactical goals. But the point being, so we're testing new features, new feature releases, and we're testing the maintenance branches. And we want to make sure that there aren't any crazy regressions or things like that go on. And so our test strategy, again, I think that's the #1 thing that we have to offer to the community is most important for that. Right, so testing, I think how Cray tests and what we test is really important. And we're trying to beef up what goes on with the community. I intend to have a conversation with you all again Thursday afternoon on concrete steps that we can take to do that. So Cray does a lot of testing. We test the whole stack. I say save the SOC L&D because we don't have any TCP/IP deployments. But we're testing the servers because obviously we're putting out Lustre servers. We're putting out Lustre clients on our HPC systems, and because we have deployments with so-called external Lustre file systems where the servers are hanging off the side of outside of the mainframe on other fabrics, we use and test Telnet routers. And so we do this at scale. We do a lot of regression testing, looking at functional issues, making sure that there aren't any regressions release to release. We take a look at performance. And one of the big gaps I think that we have as a community in testing Lustre is testing under so-called nominal conditions, where everything goes okay. I think where Lustre tends to fall apart a little bit is where you've got accidents happening, right? You've got some kind of failure, you don't recover from it properly, something else, say you've got a very high load condition, and we just want to make sure that we're testing all the code, right? So most of the code, there's lots of code that doesn't get tested when you don't even plan or trigger the failure situations. Another thing that we're doing is interop testing. Now, of course, there's things that are in scope for the feature releases. So we recently agreed to the scope of what will be, or what was 2.5.0 and then what will become 2.6.0. And client interop is carefully dictated there because there's just only so much the community can do in terms of testing, and we want to have freedom of design. Cray intends to complement the community's test plans with an additional set of tests that are more or less focused on how we're doing deployments. And we also do, we've done a lot of upgrade and migration testing, so going from Lustre 1.8 file systems, taking those up to 2.x, we're ensuring that those work and giving back to the community that way. Our real world exposure, I think, is one of the areas, again, where we have a lot to bring to bear. We have a lot of scale deployments, and the real point that I want to make here is that we plan to put out and capitalize, so to speak, on our investment with OpenSFS and the new Lustre features and the Lustre feature releases. And by that I mean we're planning to stick with the as current 6-month cadence of Lustre feature releases, and we'd like to get those out to our user community so that they can take advantage of all the new features. And so that's a high load of ingest and test and integration at Cray, and I think that helps the community. And then so finally support. And long-term support. So again, we're taking 1.8.x file systems, giving our customers the capability to move up, and I think that that's a big benefit. Okay, so we have a few minutes left, and this is just sort of a preview, I think, again, of what I would like to talk about at the CDWG meeting Thursday afternoon. I think that our collaboration with the community is essential, and we hope to improve both the feature testing and the release testing. I want to get those set in terms of concrete test plans that Cray can help execute. So Cray's in a position where we have a lot of systems at scale in-house that, well, they might not be the NCSA type, tens of thousands of clients type scale, but it's more than what's been done in the feature releases up until this point, and that we think that we can, Cray is doing the testing, but we'd like to actually make that become part of the test plans, get things written down in terms of, pass-fail criteria and what will be done and the scale it'll be done, and then slowly, methodically improve our test processes as a community. And moving forward with additional OpenSFS funding, I'd like to make sure that we're addressing technical debt and the design complexity, and doing things like keeping the documentation in the Lustre tree so that it's more or less self-documented a la the Linux kernel. And yeah, so come talk to us when the TWG and CWG meets. I think we're going to have a great conversation. I didn't leave a lot of time here for Jason to talk about HSM. So I'll just quickly roll through the complementary work I think Cray is doing for the community. We do a lot of LNet deployments. Of course, we have a specific LND for our network type, Genie LND. We're working on RAS and rerouting there. We're working on RAS in Lustre in general. Some of that's Cray specific because we have health data that's at our disposal, but the facilities that we intend to use, we tend to slowly get back as we get those deployments done. The other thing that we're doing, we've got Paul Gruen, who's co-chairing the Open Fabrics Alliance Open Framework Interfaces Working Group. I think I've got that right. They just recently renamed that. So he's doing some work there. He'd like to engage the Lustre developers on what API we'd like to have and from OFA rather, to improve the programmability of Lustre. And so Cray's doing scale testing, DNE testing. We'd like to thank Fujitsu and then WAMCloud and Intel actually for landing pingless clients for Cray's going to be using things like that in testing. And I've already talked about what we've done with testing. So Jason's going to talk about some HSM deployments if we have a few more minutes, which I think we do.
Do we have a few minutes?
Sorry, Jason.
Oh, great. Well, keep clicking. I mean, for those of you who have put together HSM workflows or working on archiving in any sense, you know that it's a really complex undertaking, especially in supercomputing. I mean, everything from the software and all of the hardware integration that goes on, not to mention that quite often the designs are such that you can put the data in, but kind of like the Roach Motel, once the data checks in, it's hard to get it out. So really our focus has been, how do you simplify this? And how do you take advantage both of what's happening in Lustre 2.5 and Robinhood and those API hooks, but also take advantage of other work like the partnership that I talked about with Versity, and how do you build on those familiar things to make it much easier and simpler for not just the HPC community coming in and out of Lustre, but also enterprise users with NFS and CIFS and so forth. So it's about accessibility. So, if you think about it in a very simple workflow, Lustre is focused really on the left, on fast scratch and processing. But then there's a big gap, I think, in many workflows where you're getting the data, either purging it or moving it from fast scratch down to deep archive. And this is the gap that we're trying to fill with this product that we're calling TAS, where we're actually plumbing in to Robinhood and the copy tool through a connector of sorts, and then coming back into the Versity file system where we have complete control over moving the data across any number of up to 4 tiers that can be any mix and match of SSD, disk, slow or fast, and tape. So just a quick look at it, you know, common pool storage bridges the gap from deep archive up into Lustre and gives you a way to really seamlessly, much like SAM-QFS in the Sun world, you know, easily non-disruptively add capacity and move the data, copy it up to 5 copies from fast to deep archive, and even a remote site copy. Anything to add on this, or and how we tie into Lustre or anything?
Well, so is my mic still on? Yeah. So so Cray's taking advantage of the copy tools that exist in the tree, and I'm sure that as we get more experience in the HSM world, and we'll be giving our enhancements back to the community.
So that's mainly it. Again, you know, love to have dialogue around this, HSM, big topic for us. And with that, I guess open it up to questions.
Yeah, sorry if we didn't leave a lot of time for questions. I'd like to, that's fine. So just come see us at the TWG and CDWG call meetings on Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you.